So for our next session today, we will be welcoming Brother Joe Huang, who is a pure practitioner who has dedicated his life to the missions of Tzu Chi and who lives at the Jing Abode and works closely with Dharma Master Zheng Yim.
然后我那时候就跟思浩说，大家行程满满，也真的不要勉强。所以那因为现在我们连线也不像以前那么不频繁，就是我们现在很频繁可以透过这样连线，即便呢我。
So it sounds like initially when we were inviting Brother Joe Huang, because he has a very packed schedule. I think initially I was saying, hey, don't force it. If you can't make it, that's okay.
什么都已经想得太美好了，然后突然间发现，一看流程不对，上人1月8号就是行脚屏东，这也就是早上。我重复一次，我来的时候上人刚好要出门，我就站在那边等着送上人。我说上人，星期3我们要读书会，上人是跟我们讲说，你们要认真一点。
But in the end, it sounds like the scheduling was able to work out.
我们会更认真，所以随时菩萨星光闪耀。现在呢，待会即将要出现的是我们熟悉的思浩。那思浩呢
？So Brother Joe Huang actually was a Tzu Chi himself.
但是他是从美。
Tzu Chi is the kind of the college level of Tzu Chi volunteers.
所以对 Reagan 跟圣宗来讲，这个对我们一定非常熟，因为呢
Sister May Yunin is saying that Jack, who translated just a moment ago, and myself are here translating today. And so we're both familiar with Joe because we both have a background as U.S. Tzu Chi.
所以你可以看到美国Tzu Chi，那这个时候谁会出现呢？就是我们的思浩会透过思浩。
One of the most memorable classes for me over the last couple of days has been Joe Xuezang, Brother Joe's class, really focusing on the...
So in the video right here, Steph Xiao, who's a teaching from the US, is sharing about her reflections of listening to a session or a sharing from Joe.
所以你看看。
So it was the 30th anniversary of Tzu Chi in the U.S. and he had come and shared at it looks like maybe the national conference, which made a big impact on the Tzu Chi at the conference. So Brother Joe actually grew up in Taiwan, but then moved over to the U.S. For a number of years before deciding to come back to Tzu Chi as a pure practitioner and living in Taiwan at the Abode.
思浩也随团，所以在这里面呢，我们就可以听到思浩在这里
介绍慈济及目前给我们。刚才听到每一位的分享都是以那份智为人医在美国过去这几年来，不论是这个医疗还是在
This is Brother Joe Huang
的经济跟社会的一些现象
in the U.S. sharing with the community of medical volunteers with Tzu Chi. And he's sharing about the importance of our medical volunteers who not only help a lot of the patients feel better from a physical health perspective, but also mentally and emotionally as well.
那无论在哪里，就是要传达那份正能量。那这一次到美国去，有一个非常重要，就是大家可知道，我们是可以走入哈佛大学的。然后在这边的一个学术研讨，对上人这一部分的慈济宗门是可以很直接的。然后
So it sounds like in the video right here, what you see is the campus of Harvard University, and it sounds like Tzu Chi volunteers had the opportunity to go on campus and share about Tzu Chi to folks on the campus.
To take part in this fabulous conference. It's just a great opportunity for scholars, practitioners, volunteers to come together and talk about all the important things that Tzu Chi does and to discuss them in a scholarly way.
It's fantastic to have papers in English and Chinese, to have really a multilingual and multicultural community of scholars look at Master Zheng Yim.
And you can see here, Brother Joe sharing.
On Tzu Chi Global Symposium on Common Goods, representative of Dharma Master Jing.
非常感恩今天有这样殊胜因缘， 代表上人来到了全美甚至全世界最高的学术殿堂，与会发表论文的学者。
So we see Dharma Master Dudson on screen here, and actually she will be joining us next year in March to share at our study group. So today the topic from Brother Joe is a phrase that we often say in Siji today, which is 我愿意 in Chinese, which approximately translates to I am willing to. So we're going to welcome Brother Joe today by saying these three words, 我愿意, 我愿意, 我愿意. So now we can see Brother Joe on screen here. So we're going to take a photo with Brother Joe in just a moment, here live in Kaohsiung. And just for everyone's context as we're getting into the session today, this interpretation is going to be potentially a little bit challenging. It's going to be a little bit of a breakdown of Chinese characters and an interpretation at a little bit deeper level of these specific words. So I will try what I can to get the meaning across, but there will be parts that may be a little bit difficult to carry over the full meaning based on the way that you explain it in Chinese. So Brother Joe sharing that right now he's in Pingdong, which is effectively the southernmost part of Taiwan, and he is traveling alongside Dharma Master Zheng Yin as they are going around Taiwan.
在整个我们的慈善周会的下面，一定有他的一个帮我们整理这个星期里面上人说的一个重点。每次他讲完，上人都觉得思浩讲得真好，所以每一年的上人行脚，这个时候我们就
So Brother Joe is very, very effective at once Dharma Master Zheng Yin has shared on teaching, he is very effective at capturing the essence of what Dharma Master Zheng Yin has been sharing and then re-summarizing it for everyone to understand. So thank you everyone, Dharma Master Zheng Yin, everybody who's listening in on the study group today. Good day to all of you. Right now I'm in Pingdong. Sorry I can't be there in person with all of you, but since we're online, we can all meet together even over the internet. So here in Pingdong, not only is the weather really warm, but our hearts are warm as well. You can see that the weather is really pleasant, but again, everyone is also very warm-hearted. So the topic today is 我愿意, which means, again, kind of in conversation, it pretty much means I am willing to do something, right? I am willing. So in one of our sutra performances today, or one of our sutra performances recently, one phrase we continue to say was 我愿意, which again is I am willing. So the sutra performance that you can see on this screen, they're not only saying we are willing, I am willing, but also showing that motion through the sutra performance. So I really started to think, what is the deeper meaning behind these words? So if we break down the words 愿意, right? 愿意 typically just again casually means willing, but if we break down these two words, the 愿 and the 意, the 愿, if I were to just approximately translate that, I'd call it a vow or an aspiration, and then the 意, the second word, is something like an intent, the intent from your mind, right? And if I elaborate on that a little bit further, 愿 as a word, that first word, is the idea of gathering or building up and putting forth the energy from a calling within you to drive forward towards a goal that you have set. Whereas 意, on the other hand, is more or less the idea of using the existing energy of your mind and body.
再回来跟上人报告，表示完成目标，目标完成啊，那上人就会再给他下一个目标啊，所以
So this first word of yun, the idea is that there is a goal. It's something that I may not be able to attain at the moment, but it's something that I'm going to work towards. And in order to work towards being able to achieve this goal, that's something where I have to continue to build up my abilities and my energy so that I can one day achieve that goal.
你需要有个动力，所以我要如何？我要每天吃健康，每天
And so you take the actions every single day to build those abilities and to build your own motivation as well.
那意是什么呢？
Now, what about that second word,
意是什么呢？好，来我们来看一下哈。那意是什么意思哈？那就是为了要完成这个目标，我们要驱动我们的。
So E again is kind of that word that means intent, right? And so the idea is, okay, so now I have a goal, and
我要先发下一个愿，我才有那个身体
now I
的
need
力
to
量来
take
做哈。
the abilities and energy that I have to work towards it.
那是一个现在不可及的目标。
But it is that
所以我们
first
需要
word of
现在就
yun
开始起步。
where I've set
不是
about
等
an
到
aspiration
这个明天要
that I
做的
need
哈，
to
明
then
天才赶快努力哈。
that I
虽然
first
老师
need
有
as a
讲到4
prerequisite for
号
me
就
to
在
then take
赶
my
这个报
intent
就是
to
请
work
人再
towards
给
that
你
goal.
好，我了解，对不起，对不起好。那但是呢，目标是不可及的，现在就要开始累积，而且要不断的往那个方向走。那意呢，刚刚讲到
And
的
this
是
E,
身
this
心灵的力
intent,
量，是我所能够累
is
积
a
的
combination
身
of
心灵的力
our
量。
mind, our
我就
body,
想
and
到
our
了意
spirit.
其实是在我们的眼耳鼻舌身意当中，我们的6识当中，所以它
And
其实是
specifically,
全部包裹在一起的。因
my
为我
intent,
有
my
愿，
abilities,
所
the
以
things that I
我
can
要
do
驱动
is a
我
combination of
所
all
有
of our
能动的
senses,
力量。
as
我
well
们
as our
看看眼
mind.
睛，我们都知道，这个内行是看门道，外行是看热闹。眼睛有没有内行，在你有没有用心。像能看
So
的
for
每一件
example,
事
we
情
use
跟我们
our
看的每
eyes.
人事物是一样的。可是为什么看得过了之后所得到
And
的
for
感
those of us
受
who are able to
远
see,
远都超过了我
we
们
all
所
may
得到
see
的
the
感
same
受？
thing out in the
北
physical
北过赶
world,
快的米家，为什么我
but
们
we
感
may
受没有
all
如此的深刻？所以意
interpret
很
and
重要。
understand
我
what we
们的那
see
个意
differently.
如果能够到达了，我的
And so
意
that's a
念到达
combination
了，
of not
我的
only
眼
our
睛能够
our
看得更
eyesight, our
深、
vision, that
更广、
sense,
更用心，耳朵
but
也
also
是
our
听
mind
得
and
更
interpreting what
深、
it is that we're
更
seeing.
深刻、更印入我们的心。那鼻子是什么？好，我
And
跟大家
let's say
分
our
享哈。
nose is in
刚
our
才
sense of smell.
讲到了这个身体健康啊，部长跟我们分享的这个身体健康的部分，其实一个区块哈。那刚刚看到佳音也有分享，他之前是做瑜伽哈，那做瑜伽的这个带动跟教学。那我也在想，
So
我们在
imagine when
运
you
动的
are
时候，
exercising.
也是我们的意念
When we are
驱使着我
taking
们的
that
身
motion
体
to
在运动。
exercise,
那
we are
请问我
using
的
our
鼻子
will
有
and
没
our
有
intent to
有
move our body to
因为
exercise.
呼吸要变更急促，呼吸的更急促，也是一个意
And
念
even
讲
the
说我需
breathing,
要更大的能量来
our
应应
breathing
我
as
现
we're
在的这个劳动
exercising, and
力，所以我
especially
必
as
须
we
要
have to
更
breathe a
多
little
的
bit
呼
harder
吸。
for
所以
exercise,
眼
that
耳
has to do
鼻
with our
舌
intent.
舌是我们所讲的话，还有我们所吃的东西。
Our intent
这一
in
切都是
controlling our
我
breathing
所
to
能
match our
驱动的力
exercise
量，
and
就
allow
因
us to
为我
exercise.
有了愿。我们人
And so
生
that
的
is our
主要上人
nose
跟我们说，
and
宗教就是人生的宗旨，
our
有了一
sense
个
of
宗
smell.
旨，有了一个目标，所以我们要驱动我们的全
So
身
these are just a
心
few
灵
examples
的
of
力
how
量
we have to
来完
really
成这个目标啊。所以我自己去想，
put our
我
intent
愿意
into
是
our
我
mind, our
因
body,
为立
our
下这个
spirit
愿，
in all
无
these
论是
different
佛心
ways
师智系
to
列
achieve these goals
还
that
是
we've
我
set
们
for
想要净
ourselves.
化人心、祥和社会、天下无灾，又或者是一个单纯的愿，期待能够把家
So these vows or aspirations that we have, that yuan, it could be as simple as taking care of our own health, taking care of our family, our home.
无论是什么愿，
Or it can be a much grander aspiration as well.
我
But
们去
whatever
驱动这样的力量
aspiration
才
that
能
may
够来
be,
成就。所以这都是
we
我们
must
的
put
心
forth our
我们的
intent
意
from our
我们
mind
的念， 因
into
为
our
要达
body,
到
into
这个
our
目
minds,
标，
into our
驱
spirits
动了我们眼耳鼻舌身
to
意的力
work
量，
towards that goal.
全部来往那个目标
So
共
let's
同
take
前
a
进。
look at this kind
所
of
以
graphical
我
representation
我
over
我
here,
愿意我们在用
kind of a more scientific view
我
of
在用
things.
科学的方式来想。
So if we think of
如果
the
在
the
目标跟
y-axis
时
here
间做
as
作
kind
为
of
纵轴
the
跟
energy
就
or
是
the
我们的
effort
x 轴
or
跟
the
y 轴，
power,
我们可以
more
想象
literally power,
愿
but think of it as an
是
energy or
在
an effort
长远
to
的
achieve
时间
something.
以外，
And
需
then
要
on the
很大
x-axis
的
right
力
here, we
量。
have
而
just
我们的意，
time.
我们现在所能够动的
Then you can
力
think
量，
of
可
the
能只
top
是
right
在远一
corner,
点而已。
that is
我现在
the
力
first
量可
word
能不
yuan,
足啊，
which
例
is
如
again
说
is our
我们
vow
希
or
望能
aspiration.
够有30
And on the
种
bottom
呼
left
吸
right
的
here
语言，
is
能够
that
在
second
这
word,
个
eat,
这个我
or
们
the
的现场
intent.
读书会当中能够 够来进行同步翻译。
So our
因为
vowels
可
may
能
be,
在
you know,
遥远的
far
地
off
方，
in
我
the
们的
top right
意
right there,
现
right?
在可能还不足。
And maybe we haven't put in enough of our energy and effort to achieve that vow or aspiration quite yet. But we must start at ground zero with our intent at the bottom left, and we have to slowly build on that intent, put it into our mind, body, and spirit to achieve that aspiration. Now, that process, of course, can be potentially very difficult. And you see that this path is not necessarily a straight line up top. We will face challenges along the way. So, for example, when you first have something that you're working towards, right? You may be very excited, very motivated. You've just set this vow, set this aspiration for yourself. I am very, very motivated to achieve this goal. But then as you're going along this journey, maybe that sense of strong motivation doesn't feel quite as strong as it always did, and you might feel like you plateau a little bit. And you may even begin to question your initial aspiration as you face a lot of challenges along your path. And maybe you even think about, hey, do I give up on this goal of mine? Right? And so then how do we overcome these challenges? It will take a lot of growing your faith and confidence in yourself and in your aspiration. And putting forth a strong sense of courage and fortitude for, you can see that last stretch that shoots back up, working towards your vow and your aspiration. So with this process, you can see that you start with that vow and your aspiration, and you allow this intent to bring yourself towards that goal. So if you think about, again, the word of intent, right? You can also think of it as that is your assessment of the abilities and energy that you have ability to put forth, right? Because it is your intent of putting your energy towards your goal. Whereas that word of yuan, which is that vow or that aspiration, it is, you can also think of it as an assessment of the goal that can be achieved. So if you start with this idea of right, that intent, the assessment of the abilities and energy, then you're really just calculating the resources that you have available, right? Whether it's your time, your energy, whatever it is. And in that way, you often limit yourself to what it is that you currently perceive as possible to your abilities and your energy. And so it's a very conservative way of making an assessment, but in that way, it limits what you're able to achieve. It limits your vows and your aspirations because you're calculating what you think you are only currently capable of, not necessarily what may come in the future, what you may work towards being able to achieve as a greater goal in the future. Now, on the other hand, if you start with the idea of that vow and that aspiration, it may be something more far off, maybe something that you don't feel like you today can achieve. But then that becomes something that you work towards, even if it's not something that you immediately have the abilities or resources to do. And so when you start with that vow and the aspiration, you'll see that the universe may have bounds, but the power of your aspiration and your vow is boundless. So starting with one word versus the other, starting with the yi word of intent versus starting with the vowel word of yuan, that gives you two very different directions of the kinds of goals you can achieve, how big those goals are that you can achieve, and your path to achieving those goals and aspirations. So, in summary, again, it is you're not limiting your goal based on your current capabilities. Rather, you're setting a goal and building up your capability to achieve that larger goal. So then when we say 我愿意, I am willing, what is it that I'm willing to do? So, of course, that would be, I'm willing to give of myself to others. I'm willing to engage myself and put myself forward. And I am willing to take on responsibilities. These are a lot of the things that in Tzu Chi we often talk about, or the missions of Tzu Chi, the work of Tzu Chi in helping others in need. So, this idea of 我愿意, I am willing, if we think about the Lotus Sutra, there is a chapter on encouragement to uphold the sutra. There was a group of bodhisattvas who came before the Buddha, and if I'm more translating the text here, it's they uttered the lion's roar and proclaimed a vow. And the deeper meaning behind this passage, behind this text, is the idea of proclaiming that I am willing with courage and with fortitude. And what we realize is that these vows and aspirations have to come from ourselves and come from within. It's not something that, for example, the Buddha as our teacher tells us, hey, this is what you need to do, or anybody else that directs us to do so, but rather this is something from deep within our minds to say, I am willing. This is my vow, this is my aspiration. So then, what is something that's maybe more relatable to a lot of us? The true idea of I am willing. Think of a wedding vow. Of course, I have, as a pure practitioner, I do not plan to get a wedding in my life, but we all can relate to what wedding vows are and what they often say. Oftentimes, in the past, or in our vows, we will say, for better or for worse, for richer or for poorer, in sickness and in health, and that's one of the parts of vows that I feel like has a very deep meaning. This is something that two individuals who are committing to each other will vow to each other in front of the witness of others. And of course, there's longer pieces to this, but the deeper meaning of this is that no matter what the future may hold, good or bad, in all the different ways that it may be, I am willing. It's not that I am willing to go do those things that I like. I'm willing only when things are good, circumstances are good, and I'm happy and my health is good. But even if all the circumstances are extraordinarily challenging, I am still always willing. That is the true meaning of I am willing. I don't think I fully caught the beginning of what Brother Joe is sharing right here, but there was a situation where somebody has passed. Somebody, I'm not sure if they were a Tzu Chi volunteer or maybe related to a Tzu Chi volunteer, but they had passed. It was in the middle of the night, and maybe 1 or 2 a.m. And despite, of course, that being a very late time, and therefore being a challenging circumstances for a lot of Tzu Chi volunteers were still very willing to stand out at this point in time and help to send off this individual. And this reminds us of this idea that regardless of the circumstance, I am willing. That was the sort of spirit, in essence, that we could see through that example. So thank you so much to everyone today.
我愿意哈，我的确哈，今天要到屏东，我真的很想哈，因为刚刚很多行程上的调整，屏东的行程在昨天才敲定。
And our schedule has been very hectic here in Pingdong these past 2 days, or the past few days.
非常的欢喜，那也请我们的这个董立胖师兄哈、薛师兄他们全家，他们今天都有来，那请他们上台讲。
And
临时多了一些段落
schedule's been changing a lot as well.
跑着在忙着做这些事情，但是还没有全部完成之前。 我就乖乖的如期的来这边。
And despite everything being very hectic, despite everything going on around me right now, just like we talked about, I am willing. I had a commitment to sharing with all of you today.
跟我们的团队一起来努力。可是同时，我也记得。
I remember that I have this commitment to, and that I am willing to share with all of you today. So I want to tell all of you that that is why I'm still here. I am willing to share with all of you.
现在那个现场，就算是觉得很重要，我也愿意，也相信我们的团队能够一起的度过啊，无论是任何的考验，所以我就来这个地方分享。心中纵然有种种的觉得，哎呀，我应该如何，应该如何。
So never forget that initial aspiration that you have, and remember to start with that vow and that aspiration.
来分享哈，那也很感恩所有的线上的菩萨还有美云老师的支持。
And remember this idea of I am willing, and to always charge forward with courage and with fortitude towards your vow and your aspiration. Thank you, and best wishes to all of you. Okay, thank you, Brother Joe, and please stay here online with us. So everybody, please put your thumbs up. Let's take a photo with Brother Joe. So what Brother Joe has shared with us today, the key message is, regardless of what challenges and circumstances we may face, we are willing, we are still willing, and we continue to be willing.
就像我们加拿大的管心灵说，从一场经藏菩萨，一场场经藏演绎、温馨座谈、岁末祝福中，听闻老中青少幼菩萨一声声的我愿意，除了激发全
So we have a comment online sharing about how in the sutra performance that Brother Joe had shared, we could see so many volunteers come together to say, I am willing, and inspire Siji volunteers all around the world with this message. And thank you to Brother Joe today for sharing this message with us.
那同时，广西防城的王雅丽说感恩师号有愿有力。
Another volunteer thanking Brother Joe for being willing to come and share with us.
被任何瓶颈和困难所打败，虚空有尽，我愿无穷，付出投入承担就是我。
And to truly show us an example of what it means to say 我愿意。
发现立愿坚定的信念，坚强道心是我们所远不及的。感恩感动感佩所有的清修士菩萨，以你们的典范。
Another comment. Thank you to Brother Joe, and other peer practitioners for setting a great example for all of us. And then Brother Jack, who again interpreted just earlier, sharing online that Brother Joe was a big star at the Siji, or the Sijing conference in the US, and really made a big impact in a lot of Sijing. And Sister Megan also was saying Jack doesn't usually share a lot of comments online, so this is a big honor that there was a comment for Brother Joe. So a lot of different comments.
我不敢说我看着他长大，但至少认识他是慈亲的时候。
Sister Janet Yao, I believe, was saying that I can't say that I watched Joe grow up, but I saw him when he was at Siching back in Northern California. And all the way from back then to now, he has shown us the spirit of I am willing.
在这个当下里面，最后是时间就4号为什么分享的法会如此深厚，是因为他的分析能力、组织能力是那么有趣。 所以分享时的口条都能清晰易见，难怪大家
Another
都想
comment
听
about
他
how
分享，
Dr.
他分
Zhou's
享的
sharing,
层
or
次
Dr.
都是
Brother
不一样
Zhou sharing
4号你可以告
are
诉大
always so
家，您
engaging
如
and
果没有
powerful.
回到近视金色
So
的时
thank
候
you.
您的本质好不好？因为他非常的优秀，由他自己讲，你只要告诉我，
And
你
so
在
let's
美国
let
是
Brother
从
Zhou
事
share with
什
us
么
what it
这
was,
样就好。
what his occupation
他是
was
电脑工程师
back when he was in the U.S. And Brother Zhou sharing here that he was actually a
有没有优秀？
software
真的
engineer,
很
computer
优
engineer or
秀
software
哈
engineer.
好，最后
So finally, thank
真
you
的
to
感恩
Dr.
4号
Zhou,
的一
oh,
个分
Brother
享，
Zhou.
他让他更
Sorry, I keep saying
了
Dr.
解
Zhou.
我愿意感恩再感恩。好，4号，希望你回去的时候上人还没有发
So
现。
Brother
因为
Zhou, I
我们
hope
屏
when
东那边，那为什么你
Brother Zhou, I
后
hope you
面
can
赏花
quickly
吗？
return to your responsibilities next to Dharma Master
有
Tseng
人
Yen.
帮他赏花。
Oh,
而
on
且我
screen
觉
here we
得
see these fireworks.
我刚才一直很紧张，说，哎，你的电脑放哪里？你那个是实景，所以前面是有投影机的，要不然你们的导播在赏花。
So earlier I was actually worried about his
没有
camera
那为什么是闪？哦，别
because
人帮你
he
赏
behind him that was
它
a
是效果。
aside from the fireworks, he had an
在
actual
的时候就会变这样子。
there wasn't a
这
virtual
个
background.
什么
This right here that you're
改
seeing
天
is
我们要请
actually
他
the
帮
real
你赏
background.
花。
The fireworks
OK， 好
was an
OK，
added
总
effect that
之
someone had
好
put
了，
on
感
top of
恩
that.
你，我们待
So
会
thank you
中午
again
下午
and
见，
see you
拜
next time.
拜，谢谢我们给我
So
们
please,
导播
everybody,
主
let's
场一下
wave.
好不好？挥手，导播有一直都有在上面哈。我们
So
有
please tell
跟
Dharma
跟
Master
上
Tseng
人
Yen
讲，
that
我没
we
有，因为
have
他竟然
we
这
have
样
been
说，
very
你
diligent.
们要认真一点。我说好，我们认真一点。好 ，OK， 拜拜。好，谢谢。好，
Okay,
接
next
下来
we'll
呢
have
就是我们的
another
活络筋骨了。那活络筋骨在这边呢，我们